How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Heartsborn Reads. I'm Mr. Harper, and I'm here to recommend another book to you that I think will be a really great read during this school closure lockdown period we're in. This is going to be another one for the older reader. I do promise I'm going to recommend some books for the younger reader as well, and actually read some proper books like the other teachers have been doing. But I've kind of been stuck at home this week, so the only choices I've got are things that I've got on my Kindle store, or books that I just have lying around the house, and most of those are appropriate for the older readers amongst you. So, the book I'm going to be recommending today is The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. Now, again, I've taken advantage of the Kindle store to get this book onto my phone this time. And I'm going to be reading a little bit of the first chapter for you today. Now, to give you an idea, The Magician's Nephew is written by C.S. Lewis, and it is one of the books in the Narnia series. There are 7 Narnia books altogether. The most famous, I'm sure you've heard of, is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then after that, it's kind of the Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Prince Caspian, I guess, because all 3 of those were made into feature films. But The Magician's Nephew is actually the first book in the series. It wasn't written first, interestingly enough. It was written 5th in the series of Narnia books. But it is essentially a prequel. So it's a book that was supposed to come before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in the series. Now, in the book, the 2 main characters, or the protagonists, if you will, are Polly and Diggory, who are 2 children living in London. Polly has always lived in London, but Diggory has been sent to live in London with his family because his mother's not very well. So he's living with his auntie and uncle. And in chapter 1, Polly and Diggory meet and they decide to become friends. And they spend a lot of time having adventures and exploring things. And one of the things they find out they can do is they can get from one house to another through a sort of strange tunnel, because their houses are terraced houses, which means they're all joined together. And in the attics, there's this kind of tunnel that runs through all of the houses. So they realise they can access any house. And one of the things they want to do is investigate a house which is empty and they believe is haunted. So we're going to pick up the story in chapter 1, where they first enter what they think is the haunted house. So here we go. Just need to find my way to the right page, sorry. Here we go. The room was so quiet that you noticed the ticking of the clock at once, and yet, as she now found, it was not absolutely quiet either. There was a very, very faint humming sound. If hoovers had been invented in those days, Polly would have thought it was the sound of a hoover being worked a long way off, several rooms away and several floors below. But it was a nicer sound than that, a more musical tone, only so faint that you could hardly hear it. "It's all right, there's no one here," said Polly, over her shoulder to Diggory. She was speaking above a whisper now, and Diggory came out blinking and looking extremely dirty, as indeed Polly was too. "This is no good," he said. "It's not an empty house at all. We'd better bunk before anyone comes." "What do you think those are?" said Polly, pointing at the coloured rings she could see. "Oh, come on," said Diggory. "The sooner—" He never finished what he was going to say, for at that moment something happened. The high-backed chair in front of the fire moved suddenly, and there rose up out of it, like a pantomime demon coming out of a trap-door, the alarming form of Diggory's Uncle Andrew. They were not in an empty house at all. They were in Diggory's house and in Uncle Andrew's forbidden study. Both of the children said, "Oh!" and realised their terrible mistake. They felt they ought to have known all along that they hadn't gone nearly far enough. Uncle Andrew was tall and very thin. He had a long, clean-shaven face with a sharply pointed nose and extremely bright eyes and a great tousled mop of grey hair. Diggory was quite speechless, for Uncle Andrew looked 1,000 times more alarming than he had ever looked before. Polly was not so frightened yet, but she soon was. For the very first thing Uncle Andrew did was to walk across to the door of the room, shut it, and turn the key in the lock. Then he turned round, fixed the children with his bright eyes, and smiled, showing all his teeth. "There," he said. "Now my fool of a sister can't get at you." It was dreadfully unlike anything a grown-up would be expected to do. Polly's heart came into her mouth, and she and Diggory started backing toward the little door they had come in by. Uncle Andrew was too quick for them. He got them behind them and shut that door too and stood in front of it. Then he rubbed his hands and made his knuckles crack. He had very long, beautifully white fingers. "I'm delighted to see you," he said. "2 children are just what I wanted." Please, Mr. Ketterley, said Polly. It's nearly my dinner time. I've got to go home. Will you let us out, please? Not just yet, said Uncle Andrew. This is too good an opportunity to miss. I wanted 2 children. You see, I'm in the middle of a great experiment. I've tried it on a guinea pig and it seemed to work, but a guinea pig can't tell you anything, and you can't explain to it how to come back. Look here, Uncle Andrew, said Diggory. It really is dinner time, and they'll be looking for us in a minute. You must let us out. Must, said Uncle Andrew. Diggory and Polly glared at one another. They dared not say anything, but the glances meant, isn't this dreadful, and we must humour him. If you let us go for our dinner now, said Polly, we could come back after dinner. But how do I know you would, said Uncle Andrew with a cunning smile. Then he seemed to change his mind. Well, well, he said, if you really must go, I suppose you must. I can't expect 2 youngsters like you to find it much fun talking to an old buffer like me. He sighed and went on. You've no idea how lonely I sometimes am. But no matter. Go to your dinner. But I must give you a present before you go. It's not every day I see a little girl in my dingy old study, especially, if I may say, such a very attractive young lady as yourself. Polly began to think he might not be mad after all. Wouldn't you like a ring, my dear? Said Uncle Andrew to Polly. Oh, do you mean one of the yellow or the green ones? Said Polly. How lovely. No, not a green one, said Uncle Andrew. I'm afraid I can't give the green ones away, but I'd be delighted to give you any of the yellow ones with my love. Oh, come and try one on. Polly had now got over her fright and felt sure the old gentleman was not mad. There was something strangely attractive about those bright rings. She moved over to the tray. Why, I declare, she said, there's a humming noise. It gets louder here. It's almost as if the rings were making it. Oh, what a funny fancy, my dear, said Uncle Andrew, with a laugh. It sounded a very natural laugh, but Diggory had seen an eager, almost a greedy look on his face. Polly, don't be a fool, he shouted. Don't touch them. It was too late. Exactly as he spoke, Polly's hand went out to touch one of the rings, and immediately, without a flash or a noise or a warning of any sort, there was no Polly. Diggory and his uncle were alone in the room. And that's the end of chapter 1. So if you like the idea of that story, it's definitely a great one to check out. You can either obviously read it to yourself, or if you think it's a good one for you to read, but maybe you wouldn't be able to read it easily yourself, you can always ask a grown-up to read it for you. I am going to be trying to read some stories in their entirety on this channel, but this one is quite long and it would take many, many videos in order to finish. So this is definitely one I recommend that you check out yourself. And I'll be back soon with some books that I'm actually going to plan to read to you in their entirety. So thanks for joining. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Turns out with our kind of channel, you can't hit the notifications bell, so I can't sound like a proper YouTuber all the time. But what you can do is share. Share this channel with your friends, share it with your family, share it with people who don't go to our school, because this channel is for everyone. And it'd be great if as many people as possible were engaging with our videos and really getting excited about reading during this time when we're not at school. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye.